Ron Wilcox, and I'm from Sandy Hook, Newtown. And I was really hoping that Representative Carter would be here tonight, as well as Geiger and Scribner, because I felt an obligation to thank them for upholding the oath that they took when they accepted office. It's the oath to uphold the Constitution and all of the Bill of Rights. So I'm sorry they're not here. I'd like to applaud that effort. I'd also like to applaud the majority of the House of Representatives, the Republican House of Representatives, for also voting against the egregious anti-Second Amendment bill. And I would also like to thank a majority of the senators, Republican senators, who also voted against this egregious bill. Other than that, John, you and I have disagreed. I'm passionate about Sandy Hook, you're passionate about Newtown, but in Easton the other night, when you mentioned the Heller ruling and the right of restriction, you left out a very key element, because in his ruling, he said, with the exception of those weapons which are in common use. So the AR-15 or assault-type rifle is the most popular weapon in use, either through hunters, target shooters, or law enforcement. There's, I think, over 600 million. So clearly, this bill is unconstitutional, and it will be challenged through legal channels. It's just a shame to put the taxpayers of Connecticut through that. So I thank you all for your work.
We've had the conversation before. Hopefully the taxpayers won't have to pay for the suit. I'm sure the NRA or other organizations can fund it. I think the bill is constitutional. I've read Heller several times. Didn't leave out the part that they talk about guns in common use. There's a lot to read into Heller. And I think the one thing we would all agree upon is that Heller dealt with what Heller dealt with. Heller was about a ban on a class of guns, all handguns. And the court referred to the fact that you cannot ban a class of guns. I would agree with that. The court also referred to the fact that handguns were overwhelmingly the choice for home defense, which is the core of the Second Amendment right. Now, the court could reach the same decision. I don't know that it will. Other assault weapon bans have been upheld. Our own state constitutional, state Supreme Court, I believe, upheld our 93 law. So we're going to see, and I think as we get further down the road, the Supreme Court will deal with New York's passed a law, Maryland's passed a law, Colorado has passed a law, and I hope we'll get to a point where the Supreme Court can speak definitively on it. I think Heller was a very good start at getting definitive on the Second Amendment, but it didn't answer all the questions.
I just think I don't have a microphone, but if I could respond, I just think it's a shame that we have to get to that point. I think none of the bill addressed mental health issues. None of the bill or any of the elements in it will prevent another incident like this. This is a knee-jerk reaction, and I said before, we are a constitution and we're governed by the rule of law. We're not a democracy, and we're not governed by emotion or mob rule. And to put the burden on the people to have to bring a lawsuit, whether it's through NRA or anybody else, I just think is unfair. I think that this bill, the way it was presented, to give our legislators, this bill at 9 a.m. and expect them to vote on it the same day without a public hearing, that's criminal in itself. So I know you're going to say, Ron, there were a lot of meetings about it was fully discussed, but the bill was not presented until that morning and voted on the same day. And there's something wrong with that process when that happens.
And unfortunately, as a member of the minority, we had nothing to do with that process. I will tell you that all Republican senators had the bill more than 24 hours before they voted on it.
Well, that's not what they're saying.
Well, what they're telling you is they didn't have.
You did, because you're part of the task force.
No. I emailed and Mike can attest to this, that what they're saying is they didn't get the final copy. I emailed them drafts 24 hours before the vote, and the difference between the draft and the final copy was typos. There were no substitutes. So look, we're not in charge of the process up there. I would love you to be as angry about how they dictate the process and everything, because they treat us this way all of the time. You don't get any disagreement with you on a process, but at the end of the day, you know, people care more about what the bill does and doesn't do than the process, and we've got to vote yes or no on what the bill does or doesn't do, not based on the process.
Thank you, John.